what makes people want to go to war? How do we as a people accept the fact that we are going to attack another country? What makes us accept the fact?
Well, most wars, if we look back historically, are almost always instigated by some form of a false flag attack. I mean, we can look back historically time and time again. The USS Maine, the explosion on the USS Maine helped start the Spanish-American War. We go back to World War I, the Lusitania. That ship was sent into an area that German U-boats were known to operate. The American people wanted no part of war, but when that ship sunk, they got whipped up into a frenzy and were ready to join World War I. World War II, Pearl Harbor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt knew about the pending attack. This is not even debatable at this point. Again, the Americans wanted no part of it. Basically, they thought, let the Europeans do this shit. They've been doing this for hundreds of years, fuck them. But then Pearl Harbor happened, and now you join the war. Gulf of Tonkin incident, it never even happened. That was how America got more involved in Vietnam. We can go on and on, 9/11 being the mother of all false flag events. So people have to be manipulated. They have to be whipped up into a frenzy, because generally people don't want war. That's not normal. You don't just want war unless you're really psychopathic. So people are always have to be fooled. And, weapons of mass destruction, Iraq, it's always based on lies to try and justify the necessity of war. And they sell one boogeyman after another, Osama bin Laden, there's always someone, the evil empire of the Soviet Union. There is always a boogeyman, there is always a reason. And if people really want to understand that, then they need to understand the military-industrial complex. And they should look at Eisenhower's warning. His last words were, beware of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, okay. So you speak about false flag events. Can you just explain a bit about a false flag event? What is it? What classifies false flags? What does it mean?
A false flag is an operation, a terrorist operation that is instigated with the intention of falsely accusing the chosen enemy. So if you want to fight, if you want an excuse, you need an excuse to, say, invade Afghanistan, or to invade Iraq, or Vietnam, or in World War II to join World War II. In World War II, it was Pearl Harbor. This is a form of a false flag in that we knew that an attack was coming. This is not debatable. We did nothing about it because we wanted, or at least those in power wanted, the attack on Pearl Harbor so that the American people would get pissed off and join the war. But a more conventional false flag, which everybody knows about, is 9/11.
Yes.
When we look at the official version of 9/11, it is beyond, it's like a bad comedy. You've got to be kidding me. These 19 idiot hijackers who could barely fly even a small Cessna plane, who were snorting cocaine, hanging out in strip bars and all this kind of stuff, yeah, they're on a jihad, are they? And they defied all of America's defenses, all the ungodly amounts of money. They defied all of that. We look at the fingerprints of who's responsible for this, and we see clearly that Israeli intelligence, Mossad, agents of Mossad were there. They knew about the event. They had foreknowledge of the event. They were filming the event. Some Israelis were caught with explosives on the day. The only people arrested on 9/11 were, in fact, Israelis. Now, we look at the policy that was the result of 9/11. Who did it favor? It favored Israel. The whole policy of Israel is for expansion, the Greater Israel Project, and there are very well documented papers and position papers within Israel, specifically Oded Yanan's The Strategy for Israel in the 1980s, which outlines a policy of expanding Israel, and the major objective was to attack Iraq. That was identified back in the 80s because Saddam Hussein, love him or hate him, it was a strong Arab leader. He did, in fact, protect the sovereignty of Iraq to a large degree, especially after he fell out with the United States. But the bottom line is Israel can't expand unless it has weakened, fractured, divided surrounding states. So the policy that America has been carrying out for the last 15 years since 9/11 is pretty much exactly Israeli policy. And Israel's fingerprints are all over the event, and they blame Muslims for it. Muslims had nothing to do with 9/11, and yet they're the scapegoats, and all of this mayhem that we've been sowing throughout the Middle East has been at the expense of Muslims, millions and millions and millions of refugees and orphans and dead and maimed and all that. And guess what? Israel has their fingerprints all over the event. That's a classic false flag.
Thank you.